right. Hello, everyone. Come on into All Things Odd. I'm Dr. Natalie Phillips.
And I'm Dr. Hannah Galloway.
And it's just the two of us today, and we are back. So before we get started, I'm going to have Dr. Galloway talk about our YouTube channel here.
Yes, so if you look here, you can see our YouTube channel. You can subscribe, and that way you will know when we have some more episodes. So we have 77 subscribers. We slowly get more all the time. And if you look here, you can see all the thumbnail images. It's kind of easier to see what each episode was about. And then you can share it from here as well. So go on there and find us and subscribe if you haven't already.
Awesome. Okay. So, we've been gone for a while, and we are back and excited. And I guess July has been kind of a whirlwind, and I've been traveling a lot. I know that Dr. Galloway made a couple of different trips as well. But our fourth year resident is not here today, Rebecca. So we came up with a topic that we wanted to talk about because we had thought that, today, later on, we're going to have a college student come in and job shadow. And she was interested in shadowing audiology because she's a communication disorders major, and she's trying to decide between speech pathology and audiology. And so the really cool question is, why choose audiology? And so that's what Dr. Galloway and I are going to talk about today, because there's always different views of why we chose audiology over speech pathology. I do have to say that before Rebecca left yesterday, we talked to her as well, and she jokingly shared that in her school, they basically asked her if she preferred drool or earwax. And that's how she chose audiology. But there's all different kinds of reasoning why we choose audiology. And I thought both of Dr. Galloway and I could talk about our why, and then maybe even talk about maybe the one thing that we still love and continue to love to do in audiology versus why we're so glad we're not part of speech pathology as well. And so we're going to just kind of talk about it. Again, if you're watching, if you're tuning in and you're an audiologist or a hearing healthcare professional, share your thoughts as well in the comments. We'll put it up. You'll be part of the show. This is why we do it live. But I think it would be kind of fun if you are tuning in and you're noticing this is what we're talking about. If you share also, maybe if you're an audiologist, why you chose audiology over speech pathology. So with that, I will start, and then I'll pass it over to Dr. Galloway to kind of talk about why she chose it. But for me, when I went to school in undergrad, we only had 2 audiology classes. The rest was about anatomy, physiology, linguistics, different things with speech. And so honestly, in undergrad, I only had 2 audiology classes. And then they're asked, okay, in your master's program, because that was when I went to school, you're going to have to pick if you want to go to speech pathology or go to audiology. And again, I was like, well, I don't know. I had 2 classes in audiology. I was also taking at the time sign language courses. And so I had spoken to my professor. And actually, I went to CU Boulder, which is just across, just a hop, skip, and a jump away. And there was a big deaf community with capital D deaf community. And so my sign language professor, I asked her, I said, well, I'm going to have to make a decision. So do you think that people would, which profession would the deaf community not like more, if I'm forcing them to speak or if I'm forcing them to hear? And that was my outlook at the time before I went into my master's program. And she told me that it doesn't really matter what you choose, but you can choose to be an advocate for either for the deaf community, right? If you go to speech pathology or audiology. So basically, mindset shift, don't look at it as I'm forcing them to do something, but I can be an advocate for the deaf community. And so I chose audiology, and I never looked back. I can't even remember, because it's such a long time ago, I can't even remember what made me choose audiology in the end, but I chose audiology over speech pathology. And throughout grad school, I do remember having speech therapy that I had to do in graduate school with clients in our clinic. And I knew I didn't like it. And a lot of it was because, and this is just, again, this is all opinion, but a lot of it was because I had to write up lesson plans with objectives, and they were really long. You had to say, this is what the objective was, and you had to write 3 different things, after every objective. And for audiology students, we also got the articulation cases and not the language cases. And so I spent a lot of time trying to come up with activities for kids to produce certain sounds like the p, a bilabial sound, or a
Mhm.
like an interdental sound. Like, okay, I still remember those terms. So, but I had to think of games that we could play. So I
Mhm.
remember like going into the closet in the speech clinic and like literally looking at toys blankly, going, what can I do to make
Mhm.
sure that this session with this kid, like, they can produce this sound, because that's what I'm doing. So that's what I mean by articulation cases. And so honestly, I didn't really learn about the depth of audiology until I was into my master's degree. And I loved it. And everything that I kept learning about, like, I actually loved. So oddly enough, and thankfully enough, like, I was able to basically fall into this career of audiology and end up loving it and going deep into what audiologists do. And it's not just hearing tests or hearing aids or things like that. Like, I'm really glad and I absolutely love it. And so I feel like I kind of just fell into audiology, luckily, and it was something that I love to do. So that's kind of my story and I'm sticking to it. But I'd love to hear how Dr. Galloway chose audiology over speech pathology.
Yep. So I went to the University of Kansas for undergrad, and my bachelor's degree is in speech language hearing. So that was different. A lot of other universities had communication science disorders or other things that had audiology in the title. But University of Kansas did speech language hearing, and so like you said, I didn't have an audiology class until maybe like junior year. And so I just thought I was going the speech route. And I remember Googling what is an audiologist like my junior year of college, even though that was my major. And then when I took the intro course, I just really liked it. I thought it was super interesting. I remember using a video otoscope to look in classmates' ears, and it like fulfilled a burning desire to know what my own eardrum looked like. So that was really cool. Part of getting my bachelor's degree was doing, like you said, some communication. I did a communication camp. So we had a clinic on campus where we would see, the same clients once a week or whatever. And then in the summer, they did this sort of like summer camp for kids. And I had 4 or 5 kids that I was sort of in charge of. So we're supposed to be collecting data and, practicing speech while we're sort of running like a summer camp, thing. So I felt a little bit like a babysitter just because of the way that it was set up. But then I also felt like there was too many kids. I couldn't collect good data. I didn't really feel like I was making a difference. I totally can relate to what you say about trying to come up with an activity because I felt like it was more getting on your hands and knees, doing art projects, stuff that I didn't think was going to translate well into being an older professional. And I remember saying that, like, I feel like I'm, crawling around on the floor a lot and, using glue sticks and doing all this stuff that's like a little bit more physical. And some of the kids, you could potentially, have therapy every single week for 6 months and make little to no progress. So for me, it felt more like, okay, well, if this child has a hearing problem and we put hearing aids on them, there we go. Like we can do speech now and we can get better results. And it just seemed a little bit more black and white to me, a little bit less gray area. And it's like, if you have this kind of hearing loss, we treat it this way. If you have this kind of hearing loss, you can have surgery. Whereas with speech, it's more, we're trying to improve someone's speech, but there's not like these distinct, this is what you do for this and this is what you do for this, because every person is different. So for me, it was the communication camp for kids. It was like in August, we did a lot of outside stuff. It was hot, it was long days, and I had not been in charge of 5 small children before. So I was just exhausted anyway. And at the end of that camp, I started thinking, what about audiology? Like, I just think that might put me more in like a hospital setting, or, not that I don't like to work with kids, because I love to work with kids, but I knew I didn't want to do all kids all
Mhm.
day, every day, because it's different. They can't tell you exactly, what the problem is with their hearing aids, or, give you as much to go off of.
Mhm.
So I felt like I wanted to do something where I could work with adults and pediatrics and maybe make more of a more immediate difference with
Mhm.
like the hearing status. With that said, I started as a Spanish major, and I got to sort of the end of the major where it was like, okay, we speak Spanish, but now we're going to analyze literature and poetry and things. And I didn't really want to do that. So this was the days of paper course catalogs. And in the paper course catalog, I was in SPAN, and right below was SPLH and the intro class. And so I was literally scanning the paper catalog, like, okay, I need to change my major. I could be a teacher. I could be a whatever, counselor. And so then speech language hearing was right below that. And the intro class fulfilled some sort of a science credit that I needed. So I took it, and same thing. I just switched my major. I thought I wanted to do speech pathology, then got to the very end of it and was like, you know what? I think I want to do audiology instead. So
Interesting.
at that time too, when I graduated, when I was going to go to graduate school, audiology was a doctorate, whereas speech was a master's. So pretty much everyone in my cohort was going speech because they didn't want to do 4 years. And I just, kind of thought hard about it and decided I needed to just jump in and go for it. And I'm so glad I did. So
That's interesting. So, and it's funny because just how it worked out with Spanish and then speech language right underneath. I think there's a story of Marion Downs, who is like the mother of audiology, and how she went to school and how she fell into like speech pathology and audiology, or communication disorders or whatever it was called when she was enrolling. I remember her telling the story, and I'm pretty sure it was her, where she got to orientation and had to declare a major, and she literally picked the shortest line, and it happened to be speech pathology audiology. And so that's kind of funny. So again, like if you're watching this, or you're an audiologist and you have a story, like I'd be super interested, because I feel like between the two of us, at least, we sort of kind of fell into it. We weren't really too sure. I feel like audiology students nowadays might have more background of understanding what it is versus like, you're up to the point where you have to decide, and you're just
right.
like, okay, audiology, yeah. Luckily, we're still both, really good at what we do, and we really love what we do. So again, that's why I'm super thankful for that. But I just think that, number one, educating people about what audiology is would be helpful. I think that having people shadow you also can be helpful. We laughed and joked when we talked about a student coming in that we're going to get her over to the dark side. I don't know why we always say that, but there's always that decision of, is it speech pathology or audiology? And I don't know why we always call audiology the dark side. It's almost like because to me, I think it's like a hidden gem. Like people don't really seek out audiology. I think maybe possibly that they still hear more about speech pathology first and then happen to fall into audiology. But I don't know. I don't know how things are changing. This person coming in, also the major is communication disorders. So again, kind of deciding whether or not she's going to go to speech pathology and audiology. And literally, when I was talking to Dr. Galloway about this yesterday, we both looked at each other and had like an evil eye. And we're just like, oh, we'll get her into audiology just by coming to our practice. So I think we're going to have a little bit of fun this afternoon.
Well, and I think too, when I was in that seat of deciding if I was going to be speech pathology or audiology, I would have told you then, and I would have told you even 6 years ago, that I was not going to open a business and I wasn't going to be an entrepreneur and like all of this. So things just happened. And I do think that as a student coming in, we're obviously passionate about this. We started a business. This is what we do and what we're going to be doing, until we retire. So I think when you can learn from someone that's passionate or observe someone that's passionate, you've been to the dentist or whatever, and you just have an experience where you can tell that person is really jazzed about what they do. And I think that makes all the difference. I could have been jazzed about something else too. I probably could have been an optometrist, like just the same way, but it doesn't, it doesn't speak to me the same way. So I'm glad I fell in where I did.
Yeah, we have a comment from Tom Harkin. Tom, great to see you. Thanks for joining in with the show and leaving a comment. Tom actually did a amazing video for us. You'll see it on our website if you go to our website. But it was for Colorado Health Matters. And so he did a really good introduction into who we are and was able to capture some of the things that we do. And it's almost like an explainer video. So we're very proud of it. We're thankful that Tom had reached out to have that done, and for you tuning in. So thank you for letting us know that you enjoyed our stories today. So the other thing that we wanted to talk about is, because we chose audiology, like, what is that, if there's one thing that you can kind of narrow it down to, what is that one thing that you love and you're so thankful that you're in with audiology, maybe versus speech pathology, since that's what we're covering, that maybe speech pathologists don't do. So for me, again, looking at my first question to my sign language teacher of forcing people to speak or forcing them to hear, right? Or just that whole communication breakdown. I have to say the one thing that I do love about audiology, because yes, we have things that we specifically do, but the thing that I love about audiology is that I get to connect people back to their loved ones, right? There's lots of people that come in, whether it's a child that we're first diagnosing and you're talking to the parents, or whether it's that what you think it's the spouse, the spouses that come together that say, this person's not hearing me, or I have to talk louder, or they're not paying attention, or, they joke about selective hearing. And really it's a joke, but it's kind of not, because what they're really telling you is, I'm not connecting with my loved one, right? And so that's the one thing that I do love about audiology. And I think now that I've heard you talk, Dr. Galloway, I think that it makes sense. Like, we're able to give a little more of a quick fix, if you say, if you want to say it that way, where we see the results quicker versus, I do recall when we were in speech pathology, I can't say that this is speech pathology now, but when we were doing our therapy as students, like, it was like you worked on one sound for 6 weeks or whatever it was for the semester, just to get the child to produce the one sound. So there is that delayed gratification versus seeing the eyes light up when you have sound with a cochlear implant, right? Or whether you're able to get them back to getting out of their house because you've helped them with sound sensitivity or with balance issues. And so for us, it's a lot of different things, but giving answers too. So I don't think that's really one thing for me, but I think that I'm going to go back to the connection piece, maybe, is what I love to do about audiology. What about you?
Well, I think too, my husband and I, just in the past talking about the differences in our jobs and everything, he's said before, like, your job must be very fulfilling because every day when you go in, you get to help somebody. And I mean, not that he's not helping people, but it's a little more indirect. He's not changing the wax guard on their hearing aid and then giving it back to them and them going, oh my gosh, that's so much better. So one, getting to help people, but two, doing all these fun, exciting things like cochlear implants and things that are, I don't want to say outside the box, but being able to help people in different ways. It's not just, a hearing test and a hearing aid or communication strategies. There's different things that we can do. And I did a cochlear implant activation yesterday. And before I went in, I joked that I had to make another coffee because I was going to have to talk for 2 hours. And then in the appointment, I was like, I love talking about this for 2 hours. Like, I could tell you I get out the head model, talk about the electrodes. Like, it's so cool to me. And I really do love it. And I think that comes across for patients. The patient yesterday, she was like, you were so thorough. And it's like you really care. That's what she said. I was like, I really do. I do care about it. So, getting to do that is awesome. And getting to be the person that, turns on the implant and does the counseling. Obviously, I couldn't do that without, Dr. Quinn, the surgeon who's going in and implanting the device and, all the other professionals that help along the way. But I always feel like that's such a cool and special day when I get to turn on somebody's cochlear implant and know, like how life-changing that is for them. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, so those are our stories we wanted to just kind of share, just because we have a student coming in today, just kind of deciding between speech pathology and audiology. We thought we'd pause, welcome ourselves back because we've been gone for so long in July, and just kind of share those stories with you. So again, if you're tuning in and you have your own story of why you chose audiology, maybe even like why you chose your work path as well, that would be really interesting to have you share on our social media channels. So we will see you guys hopefully next week, same time, 12:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and with a new show. We'll see you then.
Thank you.